Welcome back. Today we are embarking on an investigation into the very architecture of human experience, a journey into a mechanism you have likely felt operating in your life, but have never examined with this level of clinical, mechanical clarity. We often talk about the mind as a nebulous cloud, but today we treat it as a precision machine.
Exactly. On our table today is a seminal 1944 text, Neville Goddard's Feeling is the Secret. While it emerged from a mid-century metaphysical tradition, its implications resonate deeply with modern discussions on quantum observer effects and subjective idealism. This isn't your standard self-help. It's a manual for reality engineering.
It certainly sits in a very different place from the think good thoughts cliches of contemporary positivity. It's a much harsher, more disciplined philosophy. Imagine for a moment that the conditions of your outer world, your bank account, your health, your relationships, are simply a high-resolution printout of what you feel on the inside. What if striving harder in the physical world is actually the least efficient way to change it?
That is the central, bold claim. Our goal today isn't to tell a mystical story, but to decode how the author models consciousness as a literal creation machine. We want to understand the internal gears that turn thought into matter.
We will be examining the anatomy of consciousness, the hidden mechanical power of sleep, and the counterintuitive reason why traditional prayer often fails, all through the lens of this source. The author opens with a line that serves as the bedrock of the entire system. The world and everything in it is the objectified state of the conditioned human consciousness. This echoes the philosophical tradition of George Berkeley, the idea that to be is to be perceived. We really need to unpack that. Most of us are biologically wired to believe the real world is solid, external, and entirely independent of our observation. But the author suggests that the external world is a mirror. To explain this, he uses the metaphor of a single flowing river of consciousness that splits into two distinct functional streams, the conscious and the subconscious. The dynamic he uses to describe this division is fascinating. He defines the conscious mind as masculine and the subconscious as feminine. In a psychological sense, this mirrors the Jungian concepts of animus and anima, though Goddard applies them to the mechanics of manifestation. The conscious side is personal. It's the collector of data, the selective generator of ideas. It is the cause.
And the subconscious is the effect, but it's an impersonal effect. It has no logic filter. It takes any idea produced by the conscious mind and gives it physical form. Goddard actually calls it the womb of creation. It's a profound warning. Your conscious mind is planting a seed every second, and the subconscious doesn't care if it's a poisonous weed or a fruit tree. It simply grows it because you planted it.
It's a biological imperative of the mind. The subconscious doesn't argue, it doesn't rationalize, and it doesn't understand no. The choice begins and ends in the masculine conscious mind, but the production is handled by this unquestioning feminine mechanism. But here's the critical technical question. If the subconscious has zero filtering, why isn't every fleeting thought becoming a reality? We have tens of thousands of thoughts daily, anxieties, momentary anger, random fantasies. If all of those were seeds, our lives would be pure chaos. That's where the secret comes in. A thought is not a seed until it is fertilized by emotion. The author is explicit. Ideas are not planted in the subconscious through words or logic, but exclusively through feeling. Feeling is the medium. Thousands of thoughts drift through your mind like dust, but the moment you give one an emotional charge, the moment you feel it, the seed drops into the soil. And the subconscious is indifferent to the polarity of the feeling. A felt fear of poverty is just as much a command as a felt sense of wealth. This is why affirmations often fail. Standing in front of a mirror repeating "I am successful" while feeling like a failure is actually an instruction to the subconscious to produce more failure. The feeling of "I am well" is vastly more powerful than "I will be well." Because saying "I will be" is a confession to the subconscious that right now you are not. It registers the lack as the current reality. But let's address the cognitive dissonance here. If someone is sick or broke, saying "I am healthy" feels like lying. How do you bypass the rational brain's lie detector? Goddard uses St. Paul's metaphor of marriage to resolve this. The subconscious doesn't respond to force. It acts like a deeply loved spouse. It responds to persuasion, not dictation. If you internalize obstacles all day, your subconscious reads that as your sincere desire. He even makes a striking wordplay on dis-ease. He claims negative feelings directed at yourself or others cycle back to create literal illness in the body. Since the subconscious has no concept of self versus other,
any scene of anger you replay is just an emotional frequency you are ordering for your own life. You can't drink the poison and expect the other person to die. This leads us to the most critical phase of the process, the moment the logic walls come down. We have to talk about sleep.
Sleep occupies a third of our lives, and for most, it's just a biological shutdown. But for Goddard, sleep is the natural gateway to the subconscious. When you fall asleep, the masculine conscious mind, the one that observes the five senses, exits the stage. It goes to unite with its lover, the subconscious, and while you sleep, the subconscious is wide awake.
The rule is absolute. Never fall asleep in a state of disappointment or failure. When you go to bed, you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must fall asleep in the mood of the person you want to be. However, this raises a provocative intellectual challenge, the author's view on free will. He suggests that our actions during the day are essentially the inevitable outcomes of our subconscious recordings from the night before. It sounds incredibly fatalistic at first. If I had a bad day at the office, was it just because I went to bed stressed? Does this eliminate rational decision-making? The author argues that today is yesterday's harvest. Your only real freedom is not in changing the events of today, which are already on stage, but in choosing your reaction to them. That is the key distinction. If you react to a crisis with anger, you plant a new seed of chaos for tomorrow. If you meet it with calm, you break the cycle. Yesterday's feeling writes today's event. Today's reaction writes tomorrow's scenario. It's a closed-loop system of causality. But we can't wait for sleep to solve everything. This is where his definition of prayer comes in. It's not a plea to a deity. It's a passive state of relaxation, a controlled version of the sleep state. And here he delivers a blow to modern hustle culture. He says effort is fatal. He calls it the law of reversed effort. This aligns with Baldwin's law in psychology. If your desire and your imagination are in conflict, imagination, feeling, wins every time. The harder you force a thought, the more you feed the feeling of it's not happening. To bypass this, he gives a physical recipe. Lie flat, bring your head level with your body, and repeat, I am drowsy, until you enter a passive meditative state where the goal is simply felt as a finished fact. We have zero interest in the how. The mechanics of how the wish comes true are handled by the subconscious. Our only job is the what and the feeling of it being done. This brings us to the overarching concept of faith. In this system, faith isn't hope. Faith is feeling. You never attract what you want. You always attract what you are. It's radical responsibility. Goddard insists you don't need to change anything or anyone on the outside. If you want someone to change, you don't argue with them. You convince yourself that they have already changed. Your only subject is your own mind. The world has no choice but to conform to the mold you provide. He even warns that our senses lie to us. The negative balance in a bank account is just an echo of a past state. If you reject the evidence of your senses and maintain the feeling of abundance, the echo must eventually align with the new sound. The internal state is the original, the external world is the shadow. To synthesize, creation happens in the depths of the subconscious, and feeling is the only key. The reactions you have at lunch and the emotions you carry into bed at night are the blueprints of your future. As we close this deep dive, consider this. If the feelings we have before sleep are writing the script for tomorrow, word for word, what kind of tomorrow are we ordering when we spend our final waking hour consuming disaster headlines, social media arguments, or violent fiction? It is a staggering thought. Are we, through our passive consumption, coding our own catastrophes every single night? When you put your head on the pillow tonight, remember, you are not just resting, you are entering the womb of your future. Calibrate your frequency with precision, for the universe is listening to your heart, not your lips. Change the feeling and you force the world to rewrite the play. The curtain rises on your new reality the moment you dare to feel it as true. This is the law. This is the secret.